The modern warship is directly descended from the ships which fought in the Second World War. But technology moves so fast that we are looking at the third generation of ships built since 1945. Predictions that the warship could not survive in the nuclear age have been proved very wrong. The ship has re-emerged by a strange turn of events. Her guns are needed to support landings, and her huge hull is a platform for anti-ship and land bombardment missiles. Her armored hull, designed to withstand armor-piercing shells, can sustain several missile hits. Each of the 4 modernized battleships forms the core of a surface action group. They supplement the carrier battle groups of the U.S. Navy. The nature of sea warfare has changed profoundly. Weapons and electronics dominate design, not big guns and armor plating. Guided missiles are now the most powerful weapons, surface-to-air and surface-to-surface. Missiles have largely displaced guns as the main armament of warships. Medium and light guns are used for short-range defense. They are also used against soft targets, too small to warrant an expensive missile. In the Second World War, the big gun was eclipsed by the strike aircraft as the main offensive weapon. At the start of the war, it was assumed that the battleship was the most powerful ship afloat. In 1941, the sinking of the British capital ships Prince of Wales and Repulse and the crippling of the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor showed that air power was the dominant factor. By the end of hostilities, it was clearly the aircraft carrier which ruled the waves. Its aircraft could strike with bombs, rockets, and torpedoes at hundreds of miles, whereas the big gun could only reach out 25 miles. Yet the gunfire of battleships, cruisers, and destroyers remained vital to support amphibious landings. Carriers also needed screening from aircraft, surface attack, and submarines. These tasks were undertaken by other surface warships. The carrier was freed to use her aircraft to provide air defense and to support landings on enemy territory. The main surface fighting forces of the U.S. Navy are its carrier battle groups. Since the 1950s, the U.S. Navy has built 13 supercarriers, including 5 nuclear-powered giants. The latest are the 3 Nimitz-class and the Theodore Roosevelt, first of a new class of 5. They displace over 90,000 tons at full load and are driven by twin nuclear reactors generating 280,000 horsepower. The defensive armament of a supercarrier such as the Dwight D. Eisenhower is confined to short-range weapons. 3 Sparrow missile systems and 4 Phalanx Gatling guns are mounted. The main armament of the ship is, in fact, her aircraft. A typical air group includes 20 F-14 Tomcat fighters, 18 F-A Hornets, and 20 A-6E Intruders. Supporting aircraft includes 5 EA-6B Prowler electronic warfare aircraft, 5 E-2C Hawkeye early warning aircraft, 10 S-3A Viking anti-submarine aircraft, and 8 SH-3D Sea King helicopters. The life of a carrier revolves around the air group. Out of a total of over 6,000 crewmen, some 2,500 are embarked as maintainers, handlers, and aviators, among others. Keeping 6,000 men and the comparatively small number of women presently in American ships fed, provisioned, and looked after is a major task. The galleys work virtually around the clock, feeding officers and enlisted personnel as they come off watch. Crew members are kept in touch with home by mail. A laundry keeps the crew shipshape. The lack of space between decks creates a need for a gymnasium. A library provides books and videos for spare time recreation. Services such as the chapel, PX, and barber shop provide some small measure of luxury at reasonable prices. Flight deck operations are controlled from a flying control position on the island superstructure. Ship handling is separate, but in all Western navies, nobody but an ex-aviator is allowed to command a carrier. During intensive flying operations, the flight deck and hangar come to life. The various personnel are distinguished by color codes. Blue shirts for chalk and chainmen, E stenciled on the shirt means deck edge elevator hand, T means a tractor driver. Yellow shirts identify taxi directors who move the aircraft about. Before launch, the shuttle slides back along the groove in the deck. As hookup takes place, the jet blast deflector rises from the deck. When the catapult operator at the edge of the deck is satisfied that everything is prepared and the pilot is ready, the signal is given to fire the cat. The steam catapult reaches full pressure almost instantly. It accelerates to about 150 knots in less than 2 seconds, within 300 feet. The aircraft hurtles forward in a cloud of condensing steam, climbing away on full throttle. The USS Enterprise was the first nuclear supercarrier. Based on the earlier Forrestal and Kitty Hawk designs, she was, for a time, the world's biggest warship. Her 8 nuclear reactors gave her unrivaled endurance at high speed. However, she carries oil fuel as ballast, enabling her to refuel her escorts. Since completion, she has been modernized. The block superstructure has been simplified by removing billboard arrays and other equipment. 8 conventional oil-fueled supercarriers were built, 4 Forrestal class, 3 Kitty Hawk class, and the similar John F. Kennedy Kitty Hawk class. They have all been heavily modified since completion to keep pace with the threat from Soviet aircraft and missiles. Even older are the Midway and Coral Sea, started during World War II, but completed post-war. They differ in having only 3 steam catapults. The age of these 10 carriers is giving concern. To maintain 15 carrier battle groups in the mid-1990s and into the next century calls for an urgent program of new construction to replace the 9 oldest hulls. Yet there are only 4 new carriers on order or building. To make matters worse, the 2 Midway are virtually at the end of their lives and will be scrapped before the mid-1990s. The solution for the remaining carriers is virtual rebuilding. A Service Life Extension Program, or SLEP, renews hull plating, fittings, and machinery, as well as electronics. Although expensive, an SLEP is considerably cheaper than building a nuclear carrier. The first of the new nuclear carriers is the USS Theodore Roosevelt, which came into service in 1987. 4 more are in various stages of construction. Generally similar to the Nimitz, they incorporate many minor improvements. It is now possible to armor key areas with alloy and ceramic protection. Like older carriers, they incorporate underwater protection against torpedoes. During the Vietnam War, several carriers survived serious damage from ammunition explosions and fuel fires. The French Navy, the Marine Nationale, operates 2 fixed-wing carriers. The Clemenceau and Foch were completed in the early 1960s and have since been constantly modified to keep pace with technical developments. In general, they follow American practice, with angled deck, side lifts, and 2 steam catapults. They are driven by twin-shaft turbines developing 126,000 horsepower. The Clemenceau is to be replaced by the nuclear-powered carrier Charles de Gaulle in 1996. Her sister is also to go in the year 2001, depending on an order for a second nuclear carrier. The air group is made up of 16 Super Étendard strike aircraft, 10 F-8E Crusaders, and 3 Étendard 4P reconnaissance aircraft. In addition, there are 7 Alizé anti-submarine aircraft, and a small flight of ASW helicopters. The Crusader all-weather interceptor is armed with air-to-air missiles and 20mm cannon. It is nearing the end of its effective life, and one contender for the Crusader's replacement is the U.S. Navy's F-18 Hornet. The BR-1050 Alizé is a single turboprop-driven aircraft armed with lightweight torpedoes, depth charges, and a variety of air-to-surface weapons. A new strike aircraft, designated ACM for Avion de Combat Marine, is planned to replace the Super-Étendard in the later 1990s. Much will depend on the political decision to fund a sister ship to the Charles de Gaulle. Experience in other navies shows that an effective naval air arm cannot be operated with only one carrier. The Dassault Super-Étendard is, however, an impressive strike aircraft. In the Falklands, 4, armed with one AM-39 Exocet missile each, sank a destroyer and a supply ship. They also carry bombs and rockets. HMS Ark Royal is the third of 3 Invincible-class anti-submarine aircraft carriers operated by the Royal Navy. Commissioned in 1985, she displaces over 20,000 tons. The ships are the first in the world designed to operate Stovell aircraft. They can therefore dispense with the steam catapults and arrestor wires of conventional carriers.
How are you feeling then?
Not so good, sir.
Have to see what we can do about that, won't we?
Invincible-class ships carry complements of about 1,000 men, who are provided with all the most modern facilities for shipboard life.
Revolutions 128.
4 Rolls-Royce TM3B Olympus gas turbines develop 112,000 horsepower. They drive the ship at a maximum speed of 28 knots. The normal mode of operation is to run the ship on one Olympus with the other shaft trailing. This provides sufficient power for 18 knots. The other turbines can be coupled at short notice. Faulty turbines can be exchanged within 24 hours, as proved by HMS Invincible on her way back from the Falklands. The unique capabilities of the Sea Harrier have allowed new flight deck routines to be developed. Normally, a flight deck CAP, or Combat Air Patrol, is operated. 2 Sea Harriers are kept on deck, one at immediate readiness and the other at slightly longer notice to fly. The flight deck CAP compensates for the comparatively short endurance of the Sea Harrier. Contrary to popular belief, Sea Harriers do not normally take off vertically, but they do land in much the same way as helicopters. This allows the rather small flight deck of the Invincible class to be used for simultaneous launch and recovery. Experience in the Falklands showed that Sea Harriers need some form of airborne early warning to achieve successful interceptions. As a short-term expedient, the Sea King helicopter was equipped with the Searchwater Surveillance Radar. Each carrier air group now has 3 AEW Sea Kings with a distinctive radar dome on the starboard side. Anti-submarine operations need elaborate coordination of aircraft, ships, submarines, and seabed sensors. hence the former designation of the Invincibles as command cruisers. They can act as flagships with an additional bridge and command facilities. The carriers also control the flying of helicopters and Sea Harriers. A modern task force is usually spread over hundreds of miles. Ships on the outer screen feed their sonar, radar, and other information into the carrier's Action Information Organization. The Sea Harriers protect the entire task force from air and surface attack. The carrier's Sea Dart missiles also provide air defense. Sea King HAS-2 and HAS-5 ASW helicopters hunt for submarines with dipping sonar and sono buoys. They also attack with homing torpedoes and depth charges. Sea Harrier operations are greatly assisted by the ski jump. Sea Harriers normally use a rolling takeoff, which helps conserve precious fuel. The ski jump adds 50% to the weapon load or permits the pilot to stay aloft longer. Ark Royal's ski jump has an exit angle of 12 degrees. Besides her two conventional carriers, France operates a helicopter carrier, the Jeanne d'Arc. Displacing 10,000 tons, she carries a crew of 627. Her normal complement of helicopters is 4 WG-13 Lynx during peacetime, though this number would be doubled in time of war. She could also act as a commando ship or troop transport. She does, however, pack a punch in her own right, being armed with 6 MM-38 Exocet anti-ship missiles.
Missile 3, feu!
Four battleships of the Iowa class were built during World War II. They were the most powerful capital ships ever constructed for the U.S. Navy. With a displacement of 51,000 tons, they were outranked only by the Japanese giants. All four saw service in the Korean War, mainly carrying out shore bombardments. After a short peacetime spell as flagships, they went into mothballs. It was widely assumed that they would never see active service again. Then, in the mid-1960s, during the Vietnam War, the Army, and in particular the Marine Corps, demanded heavier gunfire support. In response, the USS New Jersey was reactivated in 1968. Although highly successful, she was retired once more in 1969 as an economy measure. In 1981, responding to pressure, Congress approved the first of 4 modernizations for the Iowa class. The New Jersey was the first in 1981-82. USS Iowa followed in 1982-84, and she has been joined by Missouri and Wisconsin. Like her sisters, the Iowa was totally overhauled, but the conversion was kept as simple as possible. The 8 boilers were converted to burn light distillate fuel. Accommodation was brought up to modern standards, and communications were updated. The ships have 2 roles. One is to act as the linchpin of a surface action group. The other is to provide gunfire support for amphibious landings. As a surface combatant, they are armed with 16 Harpoon anti-ship missiles and 32 Tomahawks, which can be used either for strategic nuclear shore attack or against ships. In the gunfire support role, the Iowas retained their 3 triple 16-inch turrets and 6 of the original 10 twin 5-inch mounts. The 16-inch Mark 7 gun has a maximum range of 38,000 meters. Its triple turret weighs 1,700 tons, and the armor-piercing shell weighs 1,226 kilograms. Plans are in hand to improve performance of the 16-inch gun. A new sub-caliber round will double the range. Special high-capacity shells will use anti-armor bombers. The battleships have colossal endurance, 5,000 miles at 30 knots, and nearly 3 times that at economical speed. By recommissioning them, the U.S. Navy has created 4 powerful combatants at comparatively low cost. Their 12-inch armor belts and 6-inch decks give considerable protection against missiles. To improve gunnery, the battleships have been issued with new cordite propellant. In 1987, USS Iowa operated 5 Pioneer remotely piloted reconnaissance vehicles from the helicopter deck aft. Although problems were encountered, all 4 battleships are to be equipped with RPVs. The 4 Virginia-class nuclear cruisers were built between 1972 and 1980. Their main mission is to provide anti-aircraft and anti-submarine defense for carrier battle groups. 177 meters long and over 11,000 tons at full load, they appear lightly armed for their size. But in recent years, their armament of standard MRSM-2 surface-to-air missiles has been augmented by Tomahawk cruise missiles and Harpoon anti-ship missiles. They are excellent ships, among the most powerful combatants afloat. But the cost proved so high that Congress refused to vote funds for any more. The USS Long Beach was the world's first nuclear-powered surface warship. Her silhouette, with its single block of superstructure, is unique. Being largely experimental, she has no sister ships. She displaces over 17,000 tons and is nearly 220 meters long. Designed to fire both Regulus cruise missiles and Polaris, she now operates Harpoon and Standard. The USS Chicago was one of 3 heavy cruisers converted to missile ships in the 1960s. The Tall Ladies were all out of commission by the early 1980s. The Leahy class and the similar Belknap class were originally built as air defense destroyers, or DDGs. In 1975, both classes were reclassified as missile cruisers, or CGs. These double-enders were unique at the time in having missile launchers forward and aft. They were also unusual in having a largely alloy superstructure to compensate for top weight. The Belknap was in collision with the carrier John F. Kennedy in 1975. A broken fuel pipe poured fuel over the superstructure. A spark then set the fuel alight, and in the blaze which followed, the Belknap's superstructure was virtually destroyed. She has since been completely rebuilt and serves as the 6th Fleet flagship in the Mediterranean. Although they have been in service since the mid-60s, they remain formidable ships. Their main armament is standard SM-2 extended-range SAMs, backed up by ASROC anti-submarine missiles and Harpoon anti-ship weapons. The Aegis system represents the state-of-the-art in air defense. The cruiser Ticonderoga, completed in 1983, is the first of 27 planned. The hull is based on the Spronz-class destroyer. Main armament is 2 standard SM-2 medium-range SAM systems. Additional weapons include 2 5-inch guns, Tomahawk cruise missiles, Harpoon, and ASROC. The heart of an Aegis cruiser is the Combat Information Center, or CIC. The massive computing power of the system enables as many as 400 radar tracks to be stored. Target information is displayed on large screens in the CIC. In 1988, the USS Vincennes mistook an Iranian airliner for a hostile target, but a subsequent inquiry attributed the tragedy to human error. The twin Mark 26 launches can each launch 34 standard missiles. Each RIM 66C missile has a range of more than 25 miles. The Aegis control system can select targets for individual missiles. Once within range, the missile's semi-active seeker homes on to energy reflected from the target. Target information can be time-shared between missiles, further increasing the kill probability of the system. The next improvement is to launch the missiles vertically. USS Bunker Hill is the first Aegis cruiser to be so fitted. 2 Phalanx Gatlings are mounted. A 1.5-second burst of depleted uranium rounds puts a wall of lead in the path of an incoming missile. An Aegis cruiser carries 2 lightweight 5-inch Mark 45 guns. They are used against soft surface targets. Although comparatively slow firing, the gun is reliable and accurate. 5 of the original Ticonderoga class are now in service, and 8 of the improved Bunker Hill group. Another 14 are on order or under construction. Aegis will enable the fleet of the 1990s and the next century to go in harm's way. The Duguay-Trouin is one of 3 Type F-67 anti-submarine warfare destroyers of the French Navy, with both anti-ship and anti-air capabilities. For its anti-submarine role, it is equipped with active search and attack sonar and variable depth sonar, and is armed with acoustic homing torpedoes and Malafon missiles. Distant attack is further enhanced with 2 Lynx torpedo-carrying helicopters. Air defense is provided by an octuple Crotale Naval SAM system above the hangar and 2 dual-purpose 100mm automatic guns in the bow. 6 exocets are also carried. The Type 42 or Sheffield-class guided missile destroyers were designed for area air defense of a Royal Navy task group. The first of the class, HMS Birmingham, was commissioned in 1976. The main armament is the Sea Dart missile, which is an all-weather, medium-range air defense system designed to counter the threat posed by aircraft flying in excess of Mach 2. It also has a limited surface-to-surface capability. Targets are detected by the ship's surveillance radar and assigned to one of 2 tracker illuminating radars, TIR. The TIR acquires its target, the launcher pointed at the predicted interceptor position, and the missile fired. Loading from the magazine is automatic. Two ships of this class, HMS Sheffield and HMS Coventry, were lost in the Falklands War. The former due to a sea-skimming Exocet missile fired from a low-flying aircraft. The lessons from this conflict have now resulted in the addition of 2 twin 30mm guns and 2 single 20mm guns. The Spronz class, designed for the escort of carrier task forces, is the U.S. Navy's most important guided missile destroyer. Its Harpoon and Tomahawk surface-to-surface missiles, Sea Sparrow surface-to-air missiles, 2 5-inch guns, and Phalanx close-in weapons system make it a formidable weapons platform to defend any task force. It carries the McDonnell Douglas RGM-84A Harpoon. This missile is one of the most important anti-ship weapons in the U.S. Navy's inventory. It has over-the-horizon range and total sea-skimming capabilities. Major modernization of this class is taking place to keep it a potent weapons platform well into the 21st century. The Sikorsky SH-60B Seahawk is the U.S. Navy's latest shipborne helicopter. Based on the U.S. Army's UH-60 Blackhawk, it was designed to meet the Navy's Light Airborne Multi-Purpose System, or LAMPS. Trialed on both the Spronz and Oliver Hazard Perry class, its main task is the ASW and anti-ship surveillance and targeting role, with secondary roles in search and rescue, medevac, and vertical replenishment. Deployed on the Navy's Oliver Hazard Perry class frigates, it increases the effective range of these ships considerably. With 2 Seahawks carried on later ships, it gives each frigate an almost round-the-clock airborne capability. Using the Recovery Assist Secure and Traversing system, they are able to take off in some of the roughest sea conditions. The Oliver Hazard Perry class, with its McDonnell Douglas Harpoon, anti-ship missiles, and the General Dynamics Standard anti-aircraft missile, give it a state-of-the-art missile defense. This is vital in its role as escort to a carrier task force or a civilian convoy, as was shown in the recent Persian Gulf crisis. Using a Dutch-based fire control system, backed up with the usual array of air, surface, and fire control radars, the missile systems are supplemented with the Otto Melara 76mm compact gun, 6 Mark 32 anti-submarine torpedoes, as well as the Phalanx close-in weapon system. The Phalanx, with its 6 barrels firing 20mm rounds at a rate of 3,000 rounds per minute, is used for point defense against low-flying missiles and shells. Its inbuilt Doppler pulse radar giving it a high hit probability. On the 18th of May, 1987, while escorting ships through the Gulf, the USS Stark was mistaken for an Iranian warship and was attacked by an Exocet missile launched from an Iraqi Air Force Mirage. The French Exocet missile, with its ability to be launched from a number of weapons platforms, is a potent anti-ship missile, which surface skims on its approach to its target, making it a difficult target to spot, let alone shoot down. Hit and listing to port, the Stark's damage and casualties underlined the fact that no matter how sophisticated the defensive measures, there is still no such thing as a 100% safe warship. The Type 21, or Amazon class, was the Royal Navy's first ship to be designed and built as a gas turbine-powered frigate. It was designed by Vosper Thornycroft the first commercial firm to design a Royal Navy ship in many years. The first of the class was laid down in November 1969 and commissioned in May 1974. 2 Rolls-Royce Olympus and 2 Rolls-Royce Tyne gas turbine engines produce 50,000 and 9,700 SHP respectively, giving a top speed of 30 knots, a cruising speed of 18 knots, and a range of 4,600 miles. The ship displaces 3,600 tons and has a complement of 175. A 4.5-inch gun is mounted in the bow. The 21-kilogram shells are automatically loaded from the magazine, and the gun fires at a rate of 25 rounds per minute, ejecting the shell casings onto the deck. Against surface targets, the shell has a range of almost 12 miles, and as an anti-aircraft weapon, has a range of around 3.5 miles. It also carries the Short's Sea-Cat short-range missile, mounted in quad launchers. With a range of 2.7 nautical miles, it can be used either in the anti-aircraft role or in the anti-ship role. Of the 6 ships in this class, 2, HMS Ardent and HMS Antelope, were sunk in the Falklands War, and the remaining 4 have been modified since completion to include 4 Aerospatiale MM-38 Exocet missiles and the Navy Lynx helicopter. Recent improvements also include strengthening the steel hull and increasing ballast to improve stability, resulting in an increased displacement of just under 4,000 tons. This French frigate, Drogu, is one of the 17 Destienne d'Orve Class A69 frigates. It displaces 1,170 tons and has a complement of 5 officers and 74 other ranks. These ships have a top speed of 24 knots and a range of 4,500 miles at 15 knots. It carries the Creusot Loire 3.9-inch automatic gun, coupled with the Thompson CSF Vega fire control system. The 13.5-kilogram shells are automatically loaded from the magazine, and with a rate of fire of between 60 and 80 rounds per minute, can launch a shell 17 kilometers in the anti-surface role or 8 kilometers in the anti-aircraft role, firing being controlled from a command center away from the turret. Shells are ejected forward underneath the barrel. It also carries 4 Aerospatiale MM-40 Exocet surface-to-surface missiles with a range of 70 kilometers. The missile skims the surface as it homes on its target, and at the last moment drops to engage the target. At the stern is mounted a Creusot Loire anti-submarine mortar. The 6-tube launcher is automatically fed from below with the 107-kilogram shells. The shells are then fired in a pattern at the target. Though the first of the class are fewer than 20 years old, they are due to be paid off between 1996 and 2004. However, for the present, they remain a vital part of French maritime defense. Commissioned in 1975, the Tromp-class guided missile frigate is designed to protect the Netherlands' anti-submarine warfare fleet against any air threat. Using its Signal MTTR SPS-01 air surface search radar and Raytheon SPG-51C and Signal WM-25 fire control radars, which operate in conjunction with two 4.7-inch twin Bofors and General Dynamics standard surface-to-air missile, it's able to fulfill its primary role. The 4.7-inch twin Bofors, with a range of 20 kilometers against surface targets and 12 kilometers for air targets, fires at a rate of 42 rounds per minute. As well as its primary role, the two ships of the class also serve as flagships for the Dutch fleet. The Royal Danish Navy defends the exit from the Baltic, relying mainly on fast missile-armed strike craft. To provide these strike craft with air defense and improved command and targeting information, it was decided to build 3 corvettes. The design was prepared in Britain, using standard NATO weapons and American LM-2500 gas turbines. The corvettes, ordered in 1975 and delivered in the early 1980s, were called the Niels Jewel class. The armament includes an Otto Melara 76mm gun forward and 8 Harpoon anti-ship missiles. The Sea Sparrow air defense missiles are to be supplemented by Ram short-range missiles. The main surveillance radar is the British AWS-5. Fire control is the Swedish 9LV-200. These small combatants are heavily armed for their size. On a displacement of only 1,300 tons, they combine offensive and defensive armament. Speed is 30 knots, but endurance is comparatively low, 2,500 miles at economical speed and only 800 miles at full speed. However, this is adequate for a Baltic navy. The ships are not expected to spend many days at sea. The main anti-submarine warfare force of the Royal Netherlands Navy is the Kortenaar guided missile frigate class. Displacing 3,630 tons and with a complement of 176 all ranks, it operates with other NATO navies in guarding the vital North Atlantic approach against the massive Soviet submarine fleet. As an anti-submarine ship, the Kortenaar has a huge array of locally and US-produced sensors and communications equipment. The first stage of any hostile submarine hunt is locating it. Its bow-mounted Westinghouse AN/SQS 505 sonar is connected to the anti-submarine warfare data system, which receives signals from the sonar and other sensors and analyzes the information. The data system can then give the type, heading, and depth of the target submarine. This allows the target to be tracked and the ship to be guided to intercept. The information is also fed into the communications system and transmitted to land and sea-based HQs and other sub-hunters. The system is also backed up using age-old yet jam-proof technology. The Kortenaar as a submarine hunter must be both fast and agile to be effective. With a top speed of 30 knots and a range of 4,700 nautical miles at 16 knots, coupled with an ability to maneuver as well astern as it does forward, it's able to track the most elusive targets in most sea conditions. Power is supplied by the proven Rolls-Royce Olympus and Tyne gas turbines. The two Olympuses with an output of 50,000 shp give the ship its top speed, while the two Tynes with their efficient 8,000 shp allow the ship to travel at its fuel-saving maximum range. By automatically switching from one power plant to another, the least amount of operational time is lost. Its anti-submarine potential is further enhanced by two Westland Lynx, each of which carry their sonar and weapons out to 350 nautical miles. They can also stay aloft for over 3 hours. The hydraulically operated Harpoon deck lock securing system gives the helicopter an almost all-weather capability. Armed with either two Mark 46 torpedoes or Mark 27 or Mark 81 depth charges, the Lynx can attack submarines once located by its sonar. The sonar, an Alcatel DUAV-4 dipping version, allows the hunters to expand their search envelope considerably and also track and attack submarines in far faster time than it would take with shipborne sensors and weapons. The 40mm Bofors is one part of the class's armaments, which include the 76mm Automalara compact gun, the McDonnell Douglas Harpoon in quad mounts, and a surface-to-air capability supplied by the Raytheon Sea Sparrow missile. Although originally designed as a submarine hunter, two of the class were subsequently built as air defense vessels, named the Jacob van Heemskerk class and up-armed with General Dynamics Standard missiles. The Royal Netherlands Navy needs to keep its whole navy modernized and has ordered a new class of frigate to be named Karl Duran. These are due to be interoperable with Kortenaar and will maintain the Netherlands Navy as a vital cog in NATO's anti-submarine machine. The MECO concept is a revolutionary approach to warship building. Pioneered by the famous shipbuilders Blom and Voss in Hamburg, it aims to speed up the building time and the refit time. Standard methods of shipbuilding and outfitting take up to 5 years for a destroyer, and refits and updates are equally time-consuming. At the heart of the MECO concept is containerization of weapons, sensors, and equipment. All gear is installed in international standard containers, with connections for water, air conditioning, and power supplies. The hull is designed to accommodate these containers, which are merely dropped into place and connected to the central power system and services. The MECO concept has been applied to guns up to 5-inch caliber, and even to propulsion units. A faulty weapon or sensor can be replaced in a matter of hours, merely by hoisting a new container on board. A midlife modernization is also simplified because equipment can be exchanged. The life cost of a modern warship depends largely on the time spent in commission, so any reduction of refit time is welcome. In other respects, however, the MECO 360 is a conventional frigate. Systems are standard items, and layout is conventional. Guns, surface-to-air missiles, and their reloading gear can all be installed as modular units. Fire control and tracking radars also lend themselves to containerization. MM-40 Exocet and anti-ship missiles are fastened to ramps and connected to the firing unit. The Almirante Brown is the first of 4 MECO 360 frigates ordered in 1978. She was completed early in 1983, and 3 sisters followed at 5-month intervals. They are among the most heavily armed ships of their type. Modern weapon systems require extensive testing before they become operational. It can be months before an electronic system is reliable. Gun trials can be equally time-consuming, with extensive calibration and mechanical checks. A MECO 360 frigate mounts an Otto Melara 5-inch gun and 4 twin Breda 40mm guns. Aspeed missiles are mounted for air defense. The ship's main offensive weapon is the Exocet anti-ship missile, capable of hitting targets 40 miles away. All new warships, particularly the first of class, undergo a program of sea trials before they are delivered. The Almirante Brown was no exception. Sea trials test the gas turbines and the diesel engines to ensure that the ship makes her contract speed. All systems must function correctly. At the end of the acceptance trials, the customer in effect takes delivery, although further trials may reveal shortcomings. The first of a new type, such as the Almirante Brown, may spend another year or more running trials to familiarize her crew. A ship's characteristics cannot be predicted with total accuracy. Only sea trials can provide the full picture. They enable the ship's company to bring the ship to full operational capability state. The Royal Navy provides 70% of the anti-submarine escorts for NATO's Eastern Atlantic Command. Its destroyers and frigates patrol the Greenland-Iceland-UK gap, reinforcing submarines and mine barriers. The task calls for robust, seaworthy ships, equipped with long-range sonars and helicopters. The British solution is the Type 22 frigate, designed in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The first 4, the broadsword class, were followed by a longer, stretched Batch 2. The 6 Brave class are 40 feet longer to provide space for processing data from a revolutionary new sonar. The stretched ships are distinctive, with a sharply raked bow. Like other modern ships, they appear underarmed, but they are potent vessels.
Off the watch, I'm going to the ops room.
The operations room is spacious to allow the various sensors and weapons operators to work at maximum efficiency.
Sir, the Nimrod has sonar void contacts. Action stations, action stations. Assume NVCD state 1 Zulu. Action stations, action stations.
The Boxer has completed trials of new command system to integrate all these functions. The computer-aided command system Mark I will be fitted to all 10 ships and the 4 Batch 3 Cornwall class. The Boxer class and the earlier ships have an all-missile armament. For Cold War duties, they are also armed with 2 single 40mm Bofors guns. Towed linear arrays detect submarines at very great distances. An array of passive hydrophones detects noises of propellers and machinery. Additional information from aircraft and seabed sensors enables the frigate to pinpoint the submarine's position. To enable the Boxer class to survive missile attacks from aircraft and submarines, they are armed with 2 Seawolf missile systems, one forward and one aft. Seawolf is a highly agile missile with a range of about 5,000 meters. Seawolf has proved itself capable of destroying 4.5-inch shells in flight. It has a short enough reaction time to cope with sea-skimming missiles such as Exocet. Seawolf has destroyed an Exocet missile in trials. Its normal state of operation is fully automatic because human reactions are just too slow. 2 Lynx helicopters form the main anti-submarine armament. They prosecute sonar contacts using acoustic homing torpedoes and depth charges. The big Type 22 hull provides a steady platform for helicopter operations. The double hangar will eventually accommodate a single EH-101 Merlin helicopter. The hangar protects the helicopters from salt spray. It also provides a shelter for maintenance and arming. The Lynx is equipped with a harpoon deck lock. This restrains it when the ship rolls in heavy weather. The main armament of the Lynx helicopter is the Stingray lightweight torpedo. Since 1982, Stingray has replaced the older Mark 46. Stingray is fitted with a parachute to retard its speed and to ensure that it enters the water at the correct angle. It is particularly effective in the shallow waters of the European continental shelf. Stingray's guidance system uses the latest technology to attack submarines. Instead of homing on propeller noise, it maneuvers at the end of its run to hit the most vulnerable point of the submarine.
Agreed.
A shaped explosive charge ensures that the warhead will penetrate the thickest hull plating. The ship is also equipped with Stingray as a close-range defense against submarines.
240, range 2,000, HE on the bearing 240, torpedo.
Ostwatch, take torpedo countermeasures.
Starboard 30, levers 60.
Levers 60.
Triple torpedo launchers are mounted on either beam. The Type 22s are driven by gas turbines. Most have the standard Royal Navy plant of Rolls-Royce Olympus gas turbines for main drive and Tyne cruising turbines. HMS Brave differs in being the first ship with the Rolls-Royce Marine Spey. The Spey promises better fuel consumption. The lengthened Boxers are slightly faster than the original Broadsword class. At full power, they develop about 54,000 horsepower, equivalent to 30 knots. With the sophistication and technology available to the modern ship designer, the West's fighting ships are a deterrent for any known force. However, the future of naval warfare, like the world itself, is developing at a rate unsurpassed in history. And who knows what the future will bring.